Okay, welcome to this section 20, A.L. Basham, A-level Buddhism, our religious studies anthology work. Let's read it and analyze it. He says, by this means, he managed to speak to his son, and as time went on, he spoke more often to him, and thus he gradually encouraged him. First, he urged him to remain in his service and not take another job, offering him double wages, together with any small extras that he might require, such as the price of a cooking pot or food or clothes. And then he offered him his own cloak, as he should want it. And at last he said, you must be careful, my good fellow, and think of me as a good father, for I am older than you, and you have done me good service in clearing away my refuge. As long as you've worked for me, you've shown no roguery or guile. I've noticed one of the vices in you that I've not noticed in my other servants. From now on, you're to be my own son to me. Therefore, the householder called the poor man's son, and later felt towards the householder as a son feels towards his father. So the householder, full of longing and love for his son, employed him in clearing away the refuge for 20 years. By the end of that time, the poor man felt quite at home in the house, and came and went as he chose, though he still lived in a straw hut. So we can ask, does the Lotus Sutra reflect any particular biographical, historical Mahayana experiences of the early Indian polemicists in the Sangha as it was all breaking up? What does it say? By this means, he managed to speak to the son, and as time went on, he spoke more often and thus gradually encouraged him. It does sound almost a bit biographical. Could it be, as Basham is hinting at, a later evolution, development of the Luke 17 gospel account? Is it biography reflecting as much to do with the early polemical breakup of the Sangha? So this is perhaps reflects this early split between the two traditions. At this point, an amicable rapprochement of true traditions in India, or was it? It's hard to believe it was amicable. Think of the long history of the clashes at the councils, Asoka's council more than any, where the heretics are called out, and the text of the Abhidhamma is written to explicitly. There's a part of it, a chapter of it, it's chapter 7, the points of controversy, to laser-like define what heresy is, as opposed to orthodoxy. So it's doubtful that Theravada felt how magnanimous the Mahayana were being, that it was all sweetness and light. No, this was becoming vitriolic, and it still is today in some ways. So what is this continued polemical, rhetorical discourse saying again, again, and again? First, he urged him to remain in his service and not take another job, offering him double wages together with any small extras might require the price of a cooking pot or other food or clothes, and so on. So here we have Lotus Sutra's seductive language, this as a self-serving, valorizing Mahayana metaphor and symbol to suggest how compassionate the Mahayana truly was. They could give them all of the riches, but they can only cope with these small riches, so we'll give them what they can cope with. How skillful are we? It's all about affirming the Mahayana position towards the lesser Hinayana, Theravada. Preaching here is perhaps to the converted, perhaps to the middle ground, to the patronage of particular kings and those who hadn't converted to Buddhism yet. So it argues we haven't sought to keep faith with those other lesser monks, sharing our beliefs, even our viharas with them. Haven't we been like that? Haven't we? It's them that kicked us out. We weren't the ones who left, they kicked us out. What about the Lotus Sutra parable of the father and son metaphor of the cloak? That's an interesting phrase, the cloak. He offered him his own cloak should he want it. Perhaps echoes off the Luke 17 text, his own cloak. The image here of covering perhaps has important religious echo symbolism within the context, the religio-historical context of the culture of the day of Buddhism of the 2nd century. It's perhaps a covering, a protection of true doctrine and practice. Our more perfected wisdom can really protect you when your Theravada pitiful beliefs cannot. It's kind of what's being said here. Perhaps Basham is seeing parallels with the Luke 17 influence, the cloak in it, or is this just common mythology? It's hard to kind of establish this. Notice the subtle idea of upaya going on here. Gradually, the father works alongside the son, not revealing his identity at first, but dropping hints so that not to scare the Theravada. So, the Mahayana is pragmatic in its approach to helping others gain truth, to persuasion. He uses upaya. Theravada are insistent on a static truth found only in the Dharma, whereas Mahayana are flexible, dynamic in their approach to truth, pragmatic even. So, what returning, explicit, polemical ethos attack does the Lotus Sutra parable of the father and son make here? What does it say? At last, he said, at last, you must be cheerful, my good fellow, and think of me as your father. Think of me as I'm your daddy. For I'm older than you, and have done more me good in service in clearing away my refuge. As long as you've worked for me, you've shown no roguery or guile. So here we have this returning pater, father narrative metaphor that is patronizing, paternalistic of the mature. We're the mature, we're the perfected wisdom ones, you're the immature, you're the Hinayana, the opposite. And so this is returning to regarding Theravada Mahayana. Like a son, he's been treated with great compassion, realizing how weak he is, who is benefiting from the blessing of the wiser father. But this isn't, he doesn't realize his true identity. There it is. He doesn't know what he really is. What is Mahayana at heart? The idea of discovering what you already are. What is Theravada? Discovering what you are not yet, but could be. A veiled reference to Buddha nature and Tathagata Garbha, I think. Very clever that. The father's act, skillful means act, his upaya has achieved in practice compassion towards the son. Through upaya, Mahayana believed they could help Theravada learn proper teaching. So what does Mahayana believe is the only redeeming feature of Theravada according to Basham? What does it say in the text? I've noticed, let's go with blue. I've noticed one of the vices in you that I've not noticed in the other servants. There are vices that Theravada have that not even, I don't know, followers of the Brahmins have, you know. Basham here is suggesting that Mahayana believe and so narrate the view that Theravada can at best clear away rubbish. That's all they can do. Perhaps this is a reference to Brahmanism, the other servants, other false doctrines. But the only thing Theravada can do is clear away their own rubbish and replace it with Mahayana. Very clever metaphors going on. The superior, more perfected wisdom. What is Mahayana's belief about the sad state of Theravada? According to Basham, well, they are like his. They are his son, but they don't realize it. We get this in this last section a lot. Look at all of this. Henceforth, the household son felt towards the householder, son feels towards his father. So the householder, full of longing and love. By the end of the time, the man felt quite at home in his house. But he never realizes who he truly is. He never realizes who he truly is. Despite the use of upaya, the best Mahayana feel they can do for the Theravada is to make them feel like Buddhists, even if we know they are not. They are still in straw, but not in the golden of the hut, not in the lovely beds of the palace of Theravada teachings and practices, when they could be there in practice. So this was section 20. The Lotus Sutra is all being referred to here. This 2nd century text that develops through several recensions that reflects the polemics of the crumbling institution of the Sangha, strife with schism and division as understood and narrated by only one side of i.e. the Mahayana. The Sanskrit name of the Lotus Sutra is the name Sadharma Pundarakya, I can't pronounce it, meaning the lotus of good law, true doctrine sutra. A polemical title for a polemical book. So sad dharma meaning truth, true doctrine. So sad truth, not sad meaning, but true truth of good law, Pundarakya Sutra.